App State took the stairs against JMU. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, we'll recap all of the college basketball action from the weekend. And South Alabama and Troy picked up a couple of coordinators. One was leaving and then came back to South Alabama. Very interesting on how all that went down. But let's start off with App State. The big game on Saturday, or really this week, was App State JMU. There were maybe some good games, but not really good matchups on Wednesday and Thursday early. And this lived up to the billing. App State led throughout. I don't think JMU had a lead at all in this ball game. If it was early. And App State kind of maintained that 10 to 13-point lead until JMU could miss with about 3 minutes left to go. And good to see a full house. I think that's what everyone is most impressed with. You know, Boone is, it's a great place. It's not very big. It's not easy to get to, if there's any kind of weather issues. And so I'm not making excuses, but those are reasons. And maybe App State basketball hasn't been something that people get excited about, but it was in the past. But it certainly is a great season this year. They're 17-4 now, 8-1 in the conference. JMU put up a heck of a fight. You got to give the Dukes credit. They could have absolutely lost that game by 20, but they would not go away. And App State made their free throws. They went 30 of 40 from the free throw line. 30 of 40 from the free throw line. They also have a saying, kind of like the blue collar saying. This may have started with Skip Bertman, but I know Tony Robichaux said it, they want guys who drink from the hose. They don't want guys who drink from a water bottle or something like that. They want the blue collar guys. Same thing with what Dustin Kern saying that at App State. Take the stairs, right? We don't take elevators here. We don't do it the hard way. We do it the easiest. Well, we do it the hard way, not the easiest way. And so that's a nice saying, nice slogan, take the stairs. And that's what App State did. Hopefully they can keep on drawing that way, for the rest of the season. I don't think they have that difficult of a remaining schedule. They play, remember, winning on the road is not easy. All right. And they're undefeated at home, which proves that point. They have a 3-game road trip. They get the Georgias this week and then at Texas State. Then they host Toledo, Marshall. They'll get the Cajuns. We'll get to the Cajuns, but they could be on a serious winning streak by the time they get to the Cajuns. They're at Old Dominion. They're at Marshall, which may be their toughest game left. At Marshall may be the toughest game left. They may not be a favorite in that ball game. But there's not too many losses on that schedule, right? They're going to be favored in most of these ball games. They'll be favored against the Georgias. They'll be favored against Texas State, even on the road. They'll be favored against Toledo and Marshall at home. They'll be favored against the Cajuns, regardless of how long that winning streak is on. That winning streak is at the time. And then they go on the road. All right, that's not easy. Again, at Marshall, maybe proved to be the most difficult. Then they finish up the season ODU and Arkansas State. So it is not that difficult of a slate for the rest of the season for App State. And they have a team that seems to fit. I'll be the first to tell you I've not watched a whole lot of App State, but they just seem to have a team that fits together. JMU has that too, but like Trayvon Spillers somehow isn't trying to score, but still shot it 12 times. And finishes with 21 points on 9 of 12 free throws. He made his free throws down the stretch there. Forward, Justin Abson shot it one time. He took one shot, but he grabbed 11 rebounds and, more importantly, had 8 blocks. Donovan Gregory, one of the point guards, shoots it 9 times. That's not a whole heck of a lot for a point guard. Had 14 times. 14 points. Harkham had 14 points. You get Tate off the bench with 10. And they just play really, really good defense. James Madison, again, they've been struggling. I don't think these numbers are really reflective of what they were. They shot 42%, but they kind of caught fire at the end. They were 6-17 from 3, which is a much improvement from what it was probably in the first 37 minutes of the game. Terrence Edwards Jr. had another big ball game, 25 points. Nick Friedel had 15, and TJ Bickerstaff had 15 as well. The Dukes fall to 6-3. They're 18-3 in the conference. And again, the Sun Belt is only looking at one team in the Sun Belt going to the NCAA tournament. App State actually beats James Madison, and their net rating went down from Saturday to Sunday. That may have to do with Auburn losing on the road, but it doesn't matter. You got to play well in the Sun Belt Conference tournament, and it feels like App State, may have wrapped up a regular season championship. That's great, but it really is all about winning the conference tournament. And there are, what do we got? We have 6 teams, including App State and JMU, that are trying to go for the top 4 seeds. And a couple of those, as we mentioned, App State's schedule isn't all that difficult. I don't think Troy's schedule is all that difficult. Southern Miss's isn't that easy. Marshall is not that easy either. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Of course, Southern Miss, we think eventually you're going to get Curbelo and Hart back, but they've been out for a minute or two. All right, elsewhere in the Sun Belt on Saturday, let's see what else we got here. We got time to go over another ball game. We go over that Troy and South Alabama ball game. Troy was in control of this game, but South Alabama would not go away. This was a game where Troy was just always seemed to have that 8 to 10 point lead or 9 point lead, and then boom, 2 3-pointers from South Alabama. They would not go away for a team that did not show up against ULM, and they really did not show up against ULM earlier in the week. They wouldn't let Troy coast to a victory. Muhammad for the Trojans, he had 23 points, but hit about a 20 or hit more like a 30-footer that they were up 4, and he had a 30-footer, and that put the game away. The Jaguars actually had a shot. They got an and one to make it a 3-point game, but they missed the free throw. So it's a 4-point game with about a minute to go, and Muhammad hits a 30-footer that, what are you going to do about that, right? You can't defend that. You certainly can't follow somebody away 30 feet away from the bucket, so you got to tip your hat to him. I'm not sure what's happened with Isaiah Gator. Again, did not have a good game against ULM. Was 1 of 12 against the Trojans. Nonetheless, Turbo Jones, 19 points. Howell, center, 18 points. Ormiston, 15 points. Off the bench, Smurf Millender really got them going back, and he hit 3 threes. They made it a game. That's an impressive game from South Alabama. Nonetheless, they do drop to 3-6. Troy is 7-2 with the 83-79 victory over South Alabama, and Troy is currently second in the Sun Belt. So you have App State 1, Troy 2. I need to count them. JMU, Southern Miss, Marshall, and the Cajuns are all tied for third. You need a top 4 seed to get one of those buys, although, as some will attest to, that doesn't necessarily always help. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about the rest of the action on Saturday and on Sunday. Cajuns with a relatively easy win, and ULM all of a sudden is streaking. We will do that next on Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let me tell you a little bit about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay, guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let's see what else happened on Saturday. A brutal loss for Georgia State, an amazing win for Coastal Carolina, 85-83 in overtime. Georgia State was only trailing in that game 10-9. Do I have that right? Something like that. And that's the only time they trailed until overtime. They had a 10-point lead at half. They fouled a three-point shooter with 20 seconds left. He makes all three. Let me see who that was. It was McVicker. Hits all three. A freshman hits all three free throws. And just a meltdown for Georgia State. All of a sudden, Georgia State, who was playing so much better, having won, they'd won 5 of 6. And now they've all of a sudden, and 4 of their first 5 in the Sun Belt have all of a sudden lost 4 in a row. They're down to 4-5 in the Sun Belt. Coastal Carolina, who had lost 9 of 11 since Cliff Ellis had decided to retire, finally gets another win this season. That was just a brutal loss for Georgia State. And give credit to Coastal Carolina again. Could have gone by the wayside, but they just would not give up. Coastal Carolina 3-6 in conference, 6-14 overall. Georgia State 9-11. 4-5 in the conference. Elsewhere on Saturday, Marshall actually had a pretty good win. Marshall blew out Southern Miss. They've all of a sudden won 2 in a row, 83-67. And again, Southern Miss has played really well without Victor Hart or Andre Curbelo, but this was just Marshall's day. Marshall had an 8-point lead at half. Were never really in danger in losing this game. They shot over 56% for the game, 8 for 18 from 3. Didn't shoot it all that well from the free throws, but that didn't really matter. Let's see here. They out-rebounded Southern Miss. Somewhere along the way, those injuries are going to come back to bite you. And again, Southern Miss has played really well, but Marshall with the 83-67 win over the Golden Eagles. Marshall now 6-3, 11-11 in the overall. Golden Eagles are 6-3, 12-9 overall. Let's see what else we got here in the Sun Belt on Saturday. Pushed it too far ahead. All right, let's see if we did it all. And Georgia Southern gets a win on the road, 76-70 to Old Dominion. Georgia Southern all of a sudden 5-4, by the way. And we do have news with Old Dominion. Let's see if we can find it here. Their leading scorer off the team. Yeah, he was suspended for Vaishon Alette was dismissed for the team for conduct unbecoming of a Monarch. Alette was suspended for the game against Georgia Southern, came off the bench on Wednesday for the first time this season. Yeesh. So not doing well for ODU. And, give Georgia Southern credit. Again, they started out 0-12, and all of a sudden, they're 5-4. Well, they're 5-16 overall, but they're 5-4 in the Sun Belt. They're one game technically out of 6th place, technically, or one game out of tied for 3rd. But there are 4 teams tied for 3rd, and that's a nice win on the road. They had a 9-point lead at half, and hang on for a 76-70 victory over ODU. All right, a couple of ball games that happened today, as it is locked on Sunday. Sorry, that happened yesterday because of the power outage on Thursday at the Cajun Dome. Power outage in Lafayette. not really at the Cajun Dome, but that was part of it. Power outage in Lafayette causing the Cajuns and Arkansas State to be postponed until Friday. That postpones the Cajuns and Texas State until Sunday, and Monroe and Arkansas State until Sunday. Cajuns with a rather easy win, 66-46. That's the Cajuns' 5th win in a row. A little bit of a lackadaisical game to begin with, 30-24 at half. Probably should have been bigger. They come out the second half and jump out to a 17-4 lead in the second half, and it was all the Cajuns. Themis Folks actually had a pretty good shooting ball game, made a couple of threes, 9 of 14 overall, 23 points. Kobe Julian, he had 7 points in the first half. He had like 10 points in the second half in the first 7 minutes. They could not stop him. Hosanna Kintinge actually had 13 points and 6 rebounds. He had another good ball game. Joe Charles, Mr. Everything, only 5 points, but 13 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. Just a workmanlike game for the Cajuns. They're now 6-3. Bobcats dropped to 1-8. The Cajuns, again, could be on a huge winning streak. We mentioned this. It has a lot to do with the schedule. But Monroe, all of a sudden, have to admit, Monroe all of a sudden is hot. So that's not going to be as easy as it was when I talked about it to begin with. But they've already won 5 in a row. They will be favored against Monroe. They'll be favored against South Alabama. They'll be favored against Georgia State. That's 8 games. They'll get Bowling Green at home. That could be, is that 9 ball games? And then they're at Old Dominion. The Cajuns could be on a 10-game winning streak when they face App State. They could be on a 10-game winning streak when they face App State. We'll see. All right. We'll see what the Monroe game does. South Alabama can be tough, but they'll be favored against the Warhawks, the Jaguars, the Panthers, and we'll see what Bowling Green measures up. That game doesn't really matter, as it turns out, outside of for the winning streak and the overall record. And then you go to Old Dominion, because now you want to finish. You got to finish that one. The Cajuns finish up at Monroe. They actually have a 4-game road trip. Old Dominion, App State. So that'll be at one time. And then a Monroe and Southern Miss. Probably come home between the Monroe Southern Miss ball game. And then you finish up with Troy and Southern Miss. So you're playing Southern Miss twice. We'll see where the Cajuns end up. They're playing pretty good basketball, as it turns out. They're playing some pretty good basketball. Catch a little break with the schedule, but they are playing good basketball. Playing almost as good basketball is ULM. They have a couple wins. They went on the road and beat ODU. They blow out South Alabama. And then they got way down to Arkansas State. Way down. I think I saw an 18-point deficit was at one point for the Red Wolves, and the Red Wolves blew it. ULM catches fire in the second half, outscores Arkansas State 48-33 to tie it and send it to overtime. I did not see it, admittedly. But again, they didn't foul a three-point shooter, but up 3, they let the shot get off. Taron Todd actually made 3 of 4 free throws at the end, but the Warhawks got a layup by Nika. I'm not going to say his last name. And then Nika makes a 3-point shot with 5 seconds left to go. Caleb Fields' layup was blocked at the other end, and ULM wins it in overtime, 85-82. So the Warhawks are 3-6, and the Red Wolves 4-5. Quickly, let's go over the standings. So App State 8-1. They're first. Troy is second. They're 7-2. JMU, the Cajuns, Southern Miss, and Marshall are all 6-3. Georgia Southern 5-4. Georgia State, Arkansas State 4-5. South Alabama, Monroe, and Coastal are all 3-6. And Texas State and Old Dominion are 1-8. And again, the idea is to get that bye and to be in the top 4 seeds so you can play one less ball game. That was absolutely a big part of it on how the Cajuns were able to beat South Alabama last year. I think the Cajuns were better, but when you play your 4th game in it's actually 5 days compared to your 3rd game, it absolutely takes a toll. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up our episode. We do have a couple of coordinators named. South Alabama names their defensive coordinator, familiar name, and Troy also picks up an offensive coordinator, also a familiar name. We will do that next. Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Let me tell you a little bit about FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. Right now, early line, and it may change by the time this airs, the San Francisco 49ers, 2.5-point favorites over the Kansas City Chiefs. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of a $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. The coaching carousel in college football just continues. One of these was a domino effect of, well, sort of Nick Saban, which had almost 2 hands worth. And I don't think the other one was. So Will Wyndham, linebackers coach, pretty good. Oddly enough, was mistaken for Kane Womack, not once, but twice this year. Or once last year. I think UCLA. If you Google Will Wyndham, it looks like he's got some screen grabs from like the UCLA game a couple seasons ago, and maybe the Arkansas State game, or maybe it was the I think it was the JMU game. That game did not go well for South Alabama from the get-go. But Will Wyndham, the linebackers coach, was one of the 3 coaches that Kane Womack fired. And he got hired by Arkansas State. He was going to be Arkansas State's linebackers coach. But Corey Batoon, here's your dominoes, Corey Batoon moves to Missouri because the Missouri defensive coordinator, Baker, I think, he ends up getting the job at LSU. And I think Corey Batoon and Eli Drinkwitz were on the same staff somewhere along the way. So Corey Batoon took a Power 5 defensive coordinator job, and he's done a great job with the Jaguars. And so that's a big loss for South Alabama. But you're getting Will Wyndham. We'll see if he changes up the way the Jaguars play defense. So Will Wyndham was actually fired by Kane Womack, got another job, although Kane Womack went to Alabama in between that. And when Corey Batoon took the job at Missouri, Major Applewhite went back and got Will Wyndham. Now, who's paying for moving expenses? Does he owe the Red Wolves moving expenses? How's that all work out? I'm sure he hasn't moved. It's a tongue-in-cheek joke. So, but Will Wyndham, now your defensive coordinator at South Alabama. We will probably bump into some South Alabama coaches, guessing we will do that this week. We will be in, well, we're technically in Mobile when this, well, not when it airs to begin with, but later on today, we will be in Mobile for 4 days and 3 nights. So we will stay until Thursday-ish and make our way back. But Will Wyndham is your new defensive coordinator for the Jaguars, and I think that gives, with Rob Easel as the offensive coordinator and Will Wyndham as the defensive coordinator, I think that gives Major Applewhite a lot of confidence in his coordinators. He's very familiar with both of them, so that's good on that side. On the other side, Troy was apparently supposed to have Tim Lester as their offensive coordinator. I know that name because he coached at Syracuse, but he's going to Iowa, and they are bringing back Sean Ragin. All right, this was reported by Matt Zinitz. Ragin worked with new Troy head coach Jared Parker at West Virginia and also previously worked at Troy from 08 and 09 and 2014 through 2018. So Troy also getting a familiar face, and Coach Parker also getting familiar face that they're familiar with. And that is such a big thing because you have to be able to trust these coaches, right? You have to have their back. They have to have your back. I think that's one of the reasons, besides probably the $2 million, that Kane Womack ended up going to Alabama is because this wasn't just a random coach. It just wasn't the new coach. I'm not sure. And as Craig Stevenson said, if they picked Mike Norvell from Florida State to be their head coach, Kane Wommack would still be at South Alabama. There's a trust issue there, and Kane's going to have Kalen DeBoer's back, and probably just as importantly, Kalen DeBoer will have Kane Wommack's back. And I think that's the way it works with the Troy OC now going to go work for Jared Parker, and the Jaguars defensive coordinator, Will Wyndham, now going to work for Major Applewhite. All right, we are still, it is a process. We are still trying to get some basketball coaches on and the new football coaches on. We'll see if we're able to do that this week in Mobile. So we're hoping to have a couple in the can, but we'll bring the equipment along, and we'll see if we can have some. We only have to do 2 episodes while I'm in Mobile, so we'll see. And we're going to get the players. Hopefully, we will get the players, Carter Bradley, and the running backs, and the defensive line, and the linebackers. So we'll see if we can get all of the Sunbelt players. There's only 6 of them. Should be able to get to them. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Sunbelt. The numbers continue to get up. We're over 1,100 subscribers, maybe almost 1,120. So we appreciate it. Softball is around the corner. I think baseball started last week, practice-wise. So we will do all of that moving forward. Please tell your friends and family to subscribe on YouTube. Also, don't forget about the audio podcasts. You can find them anywhere you find your audio podcast, but Apple Podcasts and Spotify seem to be the most popular. You can just search for Locked On Sunbelt, and you will be able to listen to this wherever you have your phone or wherever you get your podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Dave Schultz, and you've been listening and watching to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day,